He was a genius. He was everything. He was the symbol of universal man of a Renaissance style and way of life.
He has a power to relate everything to anything else, you know.
One of the most perfect examples of unifying of the knowledge, the perfect balance between art, science and technology.
Sa nature était son maître d'école. Il a tout inventé en observant la nature.
J'ai compris instantanément que c'était l'œuvre la plus parfaite que l'on puisse voir, ou en tout cas que moi j'ai vue.
He was a painter, a sculptor, an architect, a wonderful drawer. He could create everything.
We're about to tell you the story of a work of art and its creation, which was inspired by one of the world's greatest geniuses, Leonardo da Vinci. Join us on this exciting journey as we follow Leonardo from his birthplace to his last resting place. Artist and seasoned traveler Sylvain Tremblay is also a lecturer in art history at the Canadian University, Dubai. He's invited us to accompany him on an extraordinary artistic adventure centered on the creation of unique works inspired by the greatest masters in the history of painting. Welcome to the Master Project. Our journey begins in Vinci, the little town from which he got his name. This is also where his apprenticeship began, the school where he learned his first lessons by observing nature. Look at these landscapes, these perspectives, the blues fading into distance that we see in his work. He was listening when his grandfather told him, "Open your eyes, por l'occhio."
On peut dire que Léonard a été le premier à développer une science qui est la science expérimentale, à partir de l'observation, observer, expérimenter, apprendre, apprendre pour comprendre.
Leonardo da Vinci's first home. I can't believe I'm here. This is where it all started on April 15th, 1452. A great artist and self-taught man was born here. For an artist like me, this is an encounter with art history, and that's a topic I could really get into.
For Leonardo, everything can be found at the evidence of nature, in the evidence of reality. For him, the most important task of an artist and of an engineer is to reveal reality and everything that can be proved scientifically. So nothing in Leonardo can be associated to secrets, necromancy, and all these ideas.
Leonardo was an inquisitive artist with a fascinating scientific mind. He wanted to understand the universe we live in. Remember, there were no photos then, no internet. Artists had to rely exclusively on observation. Memory and sketches were their only references. Incidentally, Leonardo da Vinci made thousands of sketches.
I don't know if he inspired, but he certainly influenced. The treatise of painting was translated in a lot of European languages. We know that European painters knew these instructions because they also hold in their private libraries copies of this treatise of painting, in French or in German. What the curators of these books did is to choose all the instructions that Leonardo gave to the painters on how to represent the bodies in the different positions. He suggested exactly, also in a very detailed and scientific, let's say, way, how to approach painting, not in a casual way.
artists of that period had a certain ethical duty to ground their works in science in order to prove that art is intelligent. In fact, that pressure still exists today. Who can master everything? Does art have to be intelligent?
One has to know everything. I was in the way of getting to know everything, but now that I'm getting old, I start forgetting what I used to know. And so, but one thing is left, and this too I learned from Leonardo, curiosity. As long as I'm curious, then I keep going. That's my punchline, use it for it.
I understand curiosity. It's a philosophical trait that keeps the mind keen. I love this kind of idea. Carlo Pedretti is renowned as one of the most brilliant experts on Leonardo da Vinci, and he has made the artist his life study.
Takes a long time. Do you still to discover connection?
Oh yeah, we'll discover it right now.
Still to discover right now?
And before 10,000 pages, manuscript pages. I mean, who else has this legacy of these ideas? I mean, through Leonardo's manuscripts, one is able to enter into his mind at work, you know, and that's a great inspiration. He's not a painter who portrays as an impressionist, I mean, the impression of a view over landscapes. He does a landscape and starts writing underneath how is the rock formation and how is the vegetation there, what kind of things here and there, power of the water, why he creates certain things, you know.
It's true we appreciate a work of art more fully when we're familiar with the artist. I was incredibly lucky to interact with the great Professor Pedretti. Before continuing on our adventure, I had one last question.
The Battle of Anghiari.
I want to know something. I would like to know it too.
So here we are in magnificent Firenze, Florence, one of the great cities of the Renaissance. Leonardo came here with his father, Ser Piero, who had noticed his son's talent and brought him to apprentice with the master painter Verrocchio. A few years later, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo found themselves face to face, painting opposite walls of the Hall of the 500 in the Palazzo Vecchio. Surprise, surprise, the frescoes you see on the walls of the halls are not theirs. They're by Vasari. Sadly, Leonardo and Michelangelo never completed their work.
Sur le mur présumé où se trouvait la bataille d'Anghiari et où Vasari a peint un épisode qui lui avait été commandé pour la salle 500, il a découvert qu'il y avait un espace entre cette paroi-là et une qui serait derrière. Et peut-être sur la paroi qui serait derrière, y aurait-il eu la bataille d'Anghiari, mais ça...
Although the work was unfinished, people are still looking for the traces of Leonardo's Battle of Anghiari. And why not? As a great admirer of the artist, wouldn't Vasari have sought to protect his work? Or at least left some hidden, secret trace of Leonardo's passage? As the suspense builds, let's move on to another town where the artist left his mark. Professor Ferrari will tell us about the time he spent in the town of Vigevano.
When I usually speak to my students at the university, I will say this thing: we must be humble, like Leonardo, because Leonardo was the best, was the genius, was the symbol of Renaissance art, but he was never satisfied. Vigevano, at the end of the 15th century, was the second capital after Milan. This wonder place was created by a genius, Ludovico il Moro, the Duke of Milan. Leonardo da Vinci was involved in Vigevano during 4 years. For example, in the castle, in the square, or studying channels for the course of the water. He needed time. So one day he was in Milan. After a week, he came in Vigevano. Then he came back to finish the Last Supper. Then he came back here in Vigevano to create something very new.
Most artists of the Renaissance got their major commissions through patrons. The Sforza family played a decisive role in Leonardo da Vinci's life. Speaking of the Duke of Milan, who was a member of the Sforza family, here we are in his city, Milan. We're in luck. The largest Leonardo da Vinci exhibit of all time is here. Let's join Claudio Giorgione and head over to the Museum of Science and Technology, where we can see reproduction of Leonardo's inventions built from his sketches.
In the years spent in Milano, he was here for almost 18 years, between 1482 till 1499. He was fond of looking to many things that were important in Milano, from hydraulic engineering to manufacturing. He made a lot of reliefs, observations of the countryside, of the canals, waterways, architectures, and so on. And before making original proposals, he studied a lot. There is a long process of absorbing everything from the societies. Very often when we think to Leonardo, we think to an isolated genius creating everything in his workshop. That's not true. He's a genius, but around him there were so many people that helped him to be a genius. The way of working of Leonardo changed according to his aim. Consider the thousands of drawings he made. They have different functions. Very often his drawings are just observations, reliefs of things that already existed. So very often drawing is used to study reality that existed around him, because the process of creativity is preceded by a process of learning, and after that he made a lot of proposals, practical improvements of technologies, very often linked to the reality he was living in. All his observations of nature and mankind were used both for his artworks and for his scientific researches. In contemporary society, everything is so much specialized, and so people focus on thematic fields, but sometimes they lose their view on the general situation. So I think that Leonardo can be an example of looking at things in a general view and find analogies between different fields of existence, art, science, and technology, and find new ideas through this unusual looking.
What I take from this encounter is that one must never lose sight of the global vision behind a work of art. Also, that in the creative process, art and science can help each other. We can think of how photography revolutionized the art world, not to mention the advent of computers, the internet, social networks, and the evolution continues. The Last Supper was an artistic challenge that Leonardo da Vinci met with brio. Every gesture in the scene speaks. It's like a literary novel of perfect artistry. It's such a great joy to be here. It gives me such an emotional thrill. I'm speechless before such beauty. Let's just catch our breath, and then we're off to Paris, the city of lights. Leonardo da Vinci did not work here, but his soul is clearly wrapped into the fabric of this amazing capital, with the face that bewitched the entire world. Yes, of course, the Mona Lisa. I'm thrilled to be on my way to meet a rare individual. Jacques Franck is both artist and art historian, an ideal combination that gives him a vision of both worlds.
On sait de reproduire les œuvres de Da Vinci, ça prend un temps fou. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres artistes, d'autres personnes qui se sont acharnés à refaire les œuvres de Da Vinci?
Non, je ne crois pas, enfin pas à ma connaissance. Enfin, il y a eu de nombreuses copies qui ont été faites de la Joconde et des gens qui ont cherché justement par la copie à comprendre, mais je pense que personne n'a consacré le temps que j'ai consacré, c'est-à-dire une vie entière, commencée très tôt, vers l'âge de 7 ans, et jusqu'à l'âge où on est grand-père, pour essayer de comprendre. Personne n'est assez fou. Il faut être fou pour essayer simplement de vouloir percer un secret de cet ordre et d'y consacrer une vie.
So there's what makes this painting so great. Sfumato, a technique that Leonardo da Vinci mastered to perfection, blending shadow and light delicately, step by step.
Lorsque j'ai vu la Joconde la première fois, heureusement par chance, pas en reproduction, j'étais un peu plus vieux, je devais avoir 12-13 ans, quand je l'ai vue de près, j'ai compris que c'était une technique qui n'avait rien à voir avec ce qui se pratiquait du temps de Léonard, et ni même ensuite, que là, il y avait une technique d'une minutie absolument invraisemblable qui avait dû prendre peut-être des années. À partir du moment où vous avez cette technique, vous pouvez donner à votre dessin une précision exceptionnelle et représenter quasiment la nature telle qu'elle est. Ce sont ces ombres ou ces lumières qui passent insensiblement d'une lumière vive et progressivement avec des demi-teintes ou des valeurs intermédiaires très douces et qui vont vers l'ombre sans que l'on puisse se dire qu'il y a un endroit où il y a une fracture entre la lumière et l'ombre. C'est insensible. Donc sfumato parce que c'est comme une vapeur. Et c'est caractéristique dans les modelés des volumes, par exemple, du visage de la Joconde, où entre ombre et lumière, quand on approche le tableau, on ne sait pas où est la lumière, où est l'ombre, c'est totalement fondu et glissant.
Let's go to the Louvre Museum and see her up close, with someone who has held her in his hands. Not many people can say that. One day, on August 22nd, 1911, the Louvre Museum discovered that the Mona Lisa had been stolen. Vanished! Where could she be? She would resurface in Italy, stolen by a patriotic Italian, Vincenzo Peruggia. 2 years after her disappearance, she was back at the Louvre. There's a little nod to history.
Ça vous rappelle votre enfance?
La Joconde, elle a accompagné ma vie.
Vous l'avez tenue dans vos mains?
Oui.
Oui,
À plusieurs reprises, chaque fois que j'étais invité par la conservation à examiner le panneau décadré, lorsque chaque année il y a un examen technique qui est fait pour vérifier l'installation et l'état du tableau, on a peur de son ombre quand on tient un tableau pareil dans les mains, mais en même temps c'est une joie, étant donné que j'ai travaillé et fait de la recherche à partir de ce tableau sur la technique de Léonard pendant toute ma vie, évidemment. C'est quasiment quelque chose qui fait partie de ma famille, si je peux dire. Ouais.
Let's move on from Paris now, but we won't have to leave the Mona Lisa behind, just yet. To learn a bit more, let's visit the last place Leonardo lived. King Francis I of France invited the artist to live at Clos-Lucé, just steps away from his castle, Château d'Amboise.
Vous êtes ici dans la dernière demeure de Léonard de Vinci, là où Léonard de Vinci a passé les 3 dernières années de sa vie, de 1516 à 1519. Il y a été invité par le roi François Ier, c'est sa résidence, sa dernière demeure. Quand François Ier invite Léonard de Vinci, il le nomme premier ingénieur, premier architecte et premier peintre du roi. Il lui donne une pension de 700 écus d'or, ce qui est une véritable fortune à l'époque, et la liberté de travailler à ses travaux de façon intense, passionnément, pendant les 3 dernières années de sa vie à tous ces projets. Ici, nous sommes dans la salle du conseil, c'est là où Léonard de Vinci recevait ses hôtes de marque, les ambassadeurs, la famille royale, les Italiens, parce qu'il y avait beaucoup d'Italiens à Amboise. Nous sommes tout près du lieu de pouvoir, qui est le château royal d'Amboise, qui est à peine 500 mètres. Et ici, on peut dire que nous sommes dans la résidence de plaisance des rois de France. Pour Léonard, lorsqu'il arrive ici, c'est une véritable aubaine. Il est choyé par le roi, par sa famille, qui parle la même langue, qui parle l'italien. La famille royale, et notamment le roi de France, François Ier, lui voue une attention presque paternelle. François Ier appelle Léonard « mon père ». Léonard est pour lui à la fois un mentor, un grand savant, un grand artiste, mais aussi un père, puisque François Ier a perdu son père à l'âge de 2 ans. Donc c'est tout cela, cette relation extraordinaire entre ce grand artiste et ce jeune monarque de 20 ans.
It seems that Leonardo da Vinci charmed Francis I so much that he was even considered the king's father. Francis took excellent care of the Mona Lisa and personally donated it to the Louvre.
La tradition rapporte que Léonard de Vinci est mort dans les bras du roi François Ier, tel que nous le raconte Vasari dans l'histoire des grands peintres. Mais en fait, ce jour-là, le 2 mai 1519, François Ier est éloigné d'Amboise, puisqu'il fête dans la région parisienne, dans l'un de ses châteaux de la région parisienne, la naissance du dauphin, son fils Henri II. Il n'en reste pas moins vrai que François Ier, apprenant la nouvelle, reviendra à Amboise et pleurera donc cet ami qui lui était si cher. Cette tradition qui est représentée par ce tableau d'Ingres, très célèbre, est un symbole puissant, la mort du plus grand artiste de tous les temps dans les bras du jeune monarque de 20 ans.
What an extraordinary human adventure this has been, walking in the footsteps of Leonardo da Vinci. I've learned a lot about the creative process as he saw it, whether by his techniques or his global vision of a necessary symbiosis between nature, science, and art. There's a lesson here that we should never forget. In the words of Leonardo's grandfather, Polocchio. I'll be keeping my eyes wide open from now on.